Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Paul Garrigan. A common question I get asked, in fact someone sent me an email this week on the topic, is what to do about a friend or family member who has an alcohol problem. Like how to help them, how to encourage them to quit. And this is something I've obviously thought about a lot because I often work with people with alcohol problems and other drug problems, but also as well because it's part of my own journey. And one of the things I've thought about often is what could I have said to myself during the midst of my own addiction problems that would have been helpful? Because many people did try to help me, but there was this problem with getting through to me. So I often consider, what would have got through to me? What would have worked? Because if I can understand that, maybe I can use that for other people to help other people. And then you could use it to help somebody that you care about. Now, I think one thing to say straight up is there can be this, that because the behavior of people caught up in an alcohol problem or and because of the nature of addiction, it can really seem that what the person is doing is very, very bizarre and very, very hard to understand. And there can be this sense that somehow people with alcohol problems are somehow wired differently, or somehow a different kind of species almost. And I don't believe that's true. I don't necessarily use words like alcohol or alcoholism or alcoholic. To me, I never found those terms helpful. They seem to be helpful for lots of people, but they weren't for me. And see, I think what's going on with people with alcohol, it's something that just happens to humans, that can happen to any human really. And that when we kind of understand that, it can be very helpful about how to approach it. So for me, with my own journey of alcoholism, and I've seen this with many other people, there was basically two main stages to it. There was the initial stage, which was kind of like this love affair with alcohol, where I discovered something that made life a hell of a lot easier. In the beginning, the effects seemed kind of miraculous, actually. See, as a youngster, I was very, very uncomfortable in my own skin. And I was very uncomfortable around other people, and I was very shy around other people. And then I found this alcohol, which suddenly made everything so much easier. And not only that, it made my life that was so kind of overwhelming suddenly feel easy and wondrous. And so of course, I would fall in love with that. And I in the beginning I was quite evangelical about alcohol. I really saw it as this incredible thing. And my concern, my question was why wasn't everyone doing it all the time? And I would say to people, why don't you go drinking? Or why don't you drink more? Or why don't you stay longer? And they would say things, well, I don't really like the way it makes me feel. I like having a clear head. And this used to baffle me. Like, why would anybody not want this thing that alcohol was giving me? And it wasn't. And what I eventually realized was, well, because they didn't need it, or they didn't need it to the same extent as me. That some people, for whatever reason, just feel a bit more comfortable in themselves, and so they won't be as attracted. Now, that doesn't mean they're a different kind of person. It just maybe means they've had different experiences than I did, or had different, coping strategies than I did. But for some reason, when I came across alcohol, it just seemed like, it seemed very logical. It made me feel better. It made the world seem better. So of course, I'm going to go for that. And yeah, even from the beginning, I could see there was a price to pay. I'd sometimes do silly things and people would get annoyed with me. But you know what? That was a small price to pay as far as I was concerned, and a lot of it seemed kind of funny. See, one thing to remember, and I mentioned this in an earlier video, that there's a lot of the kind of the negative effects of drinking are often shown in the media. It's quite kind of amusing and kind of funny. I remember, when I was when I was about 18, I lived in Oxford, and I remember one night at 2 o'clock in the morning finding a bicycle and just riding around Oxford. And I did that in a blackout. I had no memory of it afterwards. And people were saying, "You rode that bicycle around Oxford, and we were all chasing you." And I thought that was hilarious. I didn't see that as a problem as well. I just thought that made me a bit more of a character. So when people were complaining, I didn't really get it. So even at a young age, I was forced into a position where I had to, go to treatment for alcohol. But I just did that at the time to get my girlfriend back. It wasn't because I saw it was a problem. So in this first stage, with people, it can be more difficult to get through because they're in the midst of a love affair. Just in the same way, you see people who you fall in love with somebody, even though this could be a friend of yours and you may not feel like that person is suitable for them. It can be very hard to get through to a person who's fallen in love that way. And it's pretty much the same with alcohol. But it certainly is possible. And if I had to go back to myself the way I was then, to Paul when he was 18 or 16 or between the ages of 16 and 22, that the romance years I'd say with alcohol, that if I had to go back to me then, I would need to be able to offer something better, or the possibility of something better. Just telling me about the negative consequences probably wouldn't have been enough. I wanted something, I seemed to be getting it, and unless I had a better way of getting that, I wasn't interested. So when I talk to people nowadays that are in that situation where they still very much love alcohol and see it as don't see it a problem, what I will try to do is, one, help them see if there really are problems, point out the problems, but also to suggest that there may be better ways of getting what they're after. And I've certainly found that to be the case. That everything that alcohol was doing for me, I could actually get in a better way, in a way that didn't lead to any negative consequences. And so that can be a very, very useful approach. See, I think one of the mistakes we make, when we approach people in that situation, is we just put them on the defensive. That we just kind of attack the behavior, and a natural reaction to that is to defend the behavior. So I think it can be more helpful to kind of understand what the person is actually trying to achieve or trying to do, and maybe direct them in a better way of doing it. That can be helpful. Of course, if you can get the person to kind of look at the negative consequences, that's important as well, or the negative effects, especially if the negative effects are towards you. The second phase for me, and I find most people, is that you reach a stage where you realize that alcohol really is a problem, but you feel unable to do anything about it, and you try to deny it's a problem. It's like the kind of the romance is dead, but you're trying to you can kind of feel stuck in the relationship. And I stayed like that for years, hoping things will get better, hoping things will get back to how they were. And the problem here is there can be this real sense of hopelessness, this real sense that there's no, this is as good as it gets, or I can't do any better than this. I don't have the ability to change now. And this is probably when it is easier to get through to people. And all you often need to do is kind of get them at the right time, to get the person. It's particularly when there's times when things will seem to be going okay again. But it's often when the person is kind of messed up, or they're feeling bad, that they're more approachable and more open to the idea of getting help. I mean, it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to, but it's kind of, that's what we tend to find. That when somebody's, feeling remorseful, they're more open to the idea. See, what I don't want to say, I definitely don't want to say that the person has to hit rock bottom, because that can be very misunderstood, because it's a very vague term of what that means. That people can actually stop at all kinds of times in the journey. You just have to kind of reach that point where they're willing to take that chance that there's a better option. And then, it can be just simply kind of, opening the person's eyes to the fact that there are these options and being supported. You know what I think is very, very helpful? And to have faith in somebody, to have that, to be able to believe in that person, to be able to believe that they can change, that they can, find happiness, to believe in that and to be able to see that. Because I think if we can't, I think that's a problem. If we see someone as a lost cause, it kind of affects our approach to them. And I don't think anybody is a lost cause. I don't think such a thing exists. So, at least having this kind of, this belief in the person, I think that can be very encouraging. Well, not often. Well, maybe. I mean, a lot of the times, though, there will be nothing that can be done, at least at that moment. And, sometimes, especially in a relationship, if things aren't improving, sometimes, the best thing may be to just walk away. That if this person's drinking and they're not really showing any signs of changing, it can be, if possible, just walk away. And I know that's not always possible. Sometimes the threat of that happening can be enough to encourage the person to get help. But this is something, you have to be careful with, because you don't want to bluff that. You don't want to, see, if you pretend that you're going to walk away if the person doesn't change, and then they don't change, and you don't walk away, you've lost credibility. You've kind of, that threat has become kind of meaningless. So it's kind of, if you're ever going to say it to somebody, you have to kind of mean it. You have to be willing to follow through. So I hope that was helpful. Any questions that you guys have, just leave them in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them. If you'd like to do some coaching with me, just the details be in the show notes or in the description. Here, listen to me talking about show notes. This is like some big fancy thing. If you want to listen to my podcast, I'll leave a link to that as well. And I kind of go much deeper into a lot of this stuff. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again.